Hi, and welcome to Fan/Fiction with Andrew/Zach. I'm Andrew Gum.
I'm Zach Dunsing. This is our last episode of the year, so enjoy your holidays. We're going to be interviewing our producer, Michael Eades.
And this episode gets really, really blue. So if you've got any kids around, it would be very smart to take them out of the room before Zach says something like,
King Metroid's massive cock.
For example. Enjoy the show.
Sorry if it gets a little stuffy in here. I have to cover the air vent so that we don't get that hum in the recording.
Hey, no problem. I do all my recording in my bedroom with all the doors closed and all the fans off in the dark and
completely
in my
covered
underwear.
in Vaseline.
Yeah. Well, at least very sweaty. So
Nice.
yeah.
You should cover yourself in Vaseline. You won't sweat it so much.
That's true. But then you just die.
Yeah, if the man with the golden gun has taught us anything. Or no,
Yeah.
Goldfinger.
Yeah, you get covered in the gold and
Yeah.
then your skin can't breathe and then you die.
Yeah.
Wow. Do not know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
That's how most of our conversations go. They just
You're familiar with
peel and
Goldfinger,
peel
right?
and peel until one of us is just like, "What are you talking about?"
Okay.
And then we start a new conversation.
I know of Goldfinger, but I can't say that I've actually seen
have
it.
you ever seen any James Bond movie?
Yeah, like Pierce Brosnan only. Those are the only ones I see.
You didn't even see
You're coming
Casino
in,
Royale.
you're coming in hot on that.
You
James
didn't
Bond.
you didn't even see Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. That's a great.
No, I
one.
saw that one.
That's so good.
I watched some Roger Moore ones when I was young. The one with I'm sure I've seen Goldfinger. I just don't remember.
It's the one with all the gold in it.
I have not seen Goldfinger.
No, Goldfinger has my favorite. It has my favorite scheme of all of those movies, because Goldfinger's scheme is that he's going to break into Fort Knox, not to steal the gold, but to set off a dirty bomb that will irradiate the gold for 100,000 years so that all of his gold becomes more valuable. That's fucking brilliant.
That's dope.
Because there's also a great scene where
He poisons the gold
yeah. Well, they wanted to call it Gold Poisoner, but it's already taken by
because he's got a
metal rock
poison.
Awful.
That's funny.
So how do you jump these off? Like, we've been recording for 6
no,
minutes.
I assumed.
So
First of all, just PSA: don't cover your skin top to bottom in gold paint. It'll kill you. It'll
Interesting.
asphyxiate your.
That's how
actual
we start
pores.
every podcast.
any color paint or just gold?
I mean, like green's probably fine.
Green's probably fine.
Great.
Because then you like to photosynthesize the oxygen. That's how green works.
Yeah, sure. So the way we'll record an intro later that is like a bumper at the front. What I'm thinking is we'll talk for a minute. Maybe use some of that Goldfinger stuff because it was obviously gold.
Solid gold. 24 karat Goldblum, dog.
Oh, by the way, yeah, we're trying to get 24 karat Goldblum started as a meme.
Trying to make that a thing. I don't know how to make things, but I feel like that's worth to be a thing.
24 karat Goldblum?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I literally sent him a text yesterday that said 24 karat Goldblum.
It's true. And I looked it up and it hasn't been used yet on Instagram except by me once
It seems...
As a hashtag.
as a hashtag.
I mean, it feels like an oversight, like a cultural oversight
Is
that we
it
can
on-
correct.
Did you Google it?
No.
All right. Get ready.
It came up when I was in San Diego. It came up in the context of the new Thor movie, and it was like Goldblum in that movie is like
Solid gold.
vintage 24 karat Goldblum.
Yeah.
If I just type 24K Goldblum, there's nothing.
That's insane to me.
That's great.
That's insane.
Let's
to
see
me.
what Know Your Meme has to say. Surely, if
If it exists, know your meme. I mean, they would know.
they know him.
But would they know your
They don't
meme,
know my meme.
Zach? Would they know
'Cause
your
it's
meme?
24 karat Goldblum.
No. 24 karat Goldblum is not a thing until this instant.
That is,
Or maybe the
insane to
instant
me.
that you guys
That's
came up with
insane.
it.
Basically, you could just pull any moment of Jeff Goldblum being awesome, which is any moment of his life.
His entire life.
And then you just put 24 karat Goldblum on that. That's great. I mean, and it's just nice. It's life affirming. It's good to be reminded that he exists.
I'm not sure that he has kids. I'm assuming he does, but I wonder what Jeff Goldblum was like in the delivery room while his kids were being born. I bet it was.
I'll give you an example. He was
Okay.
like, oh, ow, yeah, okay, yeah. Look at him. He's right there. That's my.
Mr. Goldblum,
that's
that is a girl.
Yeah, that is my firstborn, not son. I guess my bad there. Oh,
So, what do you think Jeff Goldblum's children, who he has 2
okay.
sons, what do you think their names are? Can you get anywhere close?
Yeah.
You go first.
I'm gonna assume one of their names is 24 Karat. I don't know. I feel like their names would be like Ramses and Kyle, and like just he'd really want to keep people guessing. That would be a Goldblum move in my mind. What do you think, Zach?
I think they're both named Bref.
Wow. That's not even a word that I've ever heard
just
before.
2 boys named Bref Goldblum.
Goldbroom.
Goldblum.
Yeah. Different surname.
No, it's Jeff Goldblum. Their middle name is Goldblum.
Now, there's a theme to their names. According to this people.com, where I go for all my news.
Right.
He has an 11-month-old named River Joe.
Aw, River Joe.
And a 2.5-year-old named Charlie Ocean. I mean, those are
the bodies of water.
those are bad names.
Those are not great names. They're like they're kind of boring names mixed with water.
The only worse name I can think of in that is Bref.
I mean, that's the only one I could think of too. It's just Bref.
Do you want to introduce yourself now, Michael?
Oh, sure. You want the full name? You want just like who I am?
Yeah, Michael
Yeah.
Bref Eades.
Yeah, Michael Bref Eades II. Nashville, Tennessee resident. I mean, that pretty much sums me up completely.
That's true. I mean, you're very active around town. I would say you're amongst the top residents in Nashville.
I am a person
You
that
and
has
T
lived
Swift.
here for most of my life.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And how do you know us?
Well, I know Andrew through you. Did not know of his existence prior, but have heard of his some tales about him, mostly with the puppetry. That's really impressive, which I guess you were involved with as well.
Yeah, I ran a robot head called Galileo.
And I was a robot named Cody, and we were a team.
Yeah.
I think I've also seen a photo of you in like a skin tight suit.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to be more specific.
No, he's talking about the best photo of us ever taken, the Rocket Pack Jack photo, where I'm in the green morph suit. It's a thing we worked on where Andrew plays Rocket Pack Jack, and he's a
Classic character.
Yeah, you all know him. It's from the Fables.
Yeah.
And he has a rocket pack. His name's Jack. It's pretty self-explanatory. But we were shooting a green screen scene where you had to do a barrel roll, where for some reason I was also the only person on set that could do this, and had to wear a green, like, full top to bottom skin tight suit and rotate you on a lazy Susan so that we could shoot you from above and make it look like you were doing a barrel roll.
Right. Which,
Also, I think it's the best photo of us ever taken.
yeah, I agree. But also, now having a better understanding of how, like, After Effects and Premiere works, why didn't they just rotate the image? Like, you can just rotate the
Practical effects, man.
I think they just wanted to get me into that suit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't deny that was a more fun way to do it. So yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll share that on the episode detail page for this episode.
I've been waiting for a good moment to release that photo, because I really would love for somebody to start writing some Rocket Pack Jack fan fiction.
Oh my gosh, I would want it to get really blue though.
Yeah,
because it's like
as
Christian.
blue as your costume was.
Yeah, it's like Christian, like superhero story for Lifeway.
It's like if Spy Kids were Christian propaganda.
That's exactly what it was like. Yeah, but you don't want to force someone to write fan fiction unless it's season 3 of our show, in which case we will allow ourselves to be forced to write fan fiction based on suggestions.
I don't even think. I mean, I think we should do a sort of Bag of Hotties scenario with that, where you have like 3 buckets, 2 characters. For me, I guess it would be crossovers, so 2 characters and then a theme, and you got a like 24-hour film festival which is that you
You have to
pull
pull
them
out.
together.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Come up with a
just
quick
considering
concept.
what's a bag of hotties. I know what it is, but explain for our
Yeah.
listeners.
So that's a bit that they do on Hot Minute, the other
Yes.
podcast that Mr. Eades here is a producer of.
Yeah.
Mr. Eades, our producer and producer of other things, who is on this podcast right now.
That's me. I don't know that I count myself as a producer of your show as much as a consultant. I think Zach is more the producer, personally.
I definitely agree
That's
with
fair.
that, but I still list you as one.
Well, that's very flattering, but also I'm doing like the technical work. I
Yeah,
deliver the file.
Cool.
Set up.
But you know,
website.
you have the you're welcome to contribute as much or as little as you.
That's why I'm here. I forced my way in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And this is actually the first time we've had an interview where everybody's been in the same room at the same time. This is
That's
kind of
true.
momentous for me.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Real quick, what's Bag of Hotties?
So the Bag of Hotties is a segment on the podcast Hot Minute, a show hosted by Ashley Spurgeon and Jamie Bradley, that they reach into a literal paper bag filled with names and pull that name out and then decree if that person is hot or not. And in general, the bag is filled with hotties.
Yeah.
So you're going to pull a hottie out. But
Do you? Ooh, I would love to slip in a bag of naughties. One time.
Yeah.
well, I mean,
a naughties
Naughties.
and naughties.
but
as
there
well.
there have been some that slip in there. Like Billy Crystal was in there one time.
Sure.
And Billy
Big
Crystal,
time naughty.
you know, he's funny, he's respectable. We generally think of Billy Crystal in a positive manner, but he did do blackface within the last 10 years.
He did?
I've heard he's actually an asshole.
I mean,
Really?
you can tell he's an
Oh,
asshole.
Billy, no. I was going to say in When Harry Met Sally, he is a small, funny-looking guy, somewhat like myself, and he sells it as a romantic lead, and I took a lot of encouragement from that as a young man, just being like, Billy Crystal was the romantic lead opposite Meg Ryan, who is, definitely in the hottie pile, not the naughty pile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I consider Hot Minute to not only be our like sister podcast, but actually our like big sister podcast.
Sure.
Because they're the ones like upstairs siphoning wine out of the box and talking about who's hot while we're like relegated to the basement just obsessing over nerd minutia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
I-
where we belong.
They
so
help
that's
inform
fair.
one another because Hot Minute has like an insane breadth of knowledge about all of these topics as well. Like if you just brought up a random
Yeah.
Well, the
fanfic, they
the
would
very
get it.
first episode that I listened to from Hot Minute, they were talking about how she's super into fan fiction.
Oh yeah,
And I was like, oh man, she should be doing this podcast too.
yeah. I think you can get her on
We
here.
want her on.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
So Jamie Bradley, one of the
Also-
hosts, she definitely reads fan fiction
Yeah.
very regularly, especially about Mr. Robot.
Yeah.
But all things. I think on the most recent episode, she was talking about what's that stupid HBO show that everyone loves?
Game of Thrones.
The other one,
Westworld.
Westworld.
There it is.
Westworld fanfic.
You've
with-
never seen a HBO show in your life, have you?
No, never, never done it. No, but saying Westworld fanfic was like, there's a bunch about the Native Americans that are on the show, and it's all problematic.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But from my little research, it seems like most fan fiction is problematic.
Most of it is.
definitely true. Definitely true. Yeah.
Also, Michael and I wanted to take this time to just let you know that we're replacing you with Jamie.
Oh, that's a way better choice. Jamie, welcome to the show. You're going to do so great.
Yeah.
I'm already your biggest fan. I'll keep listening.
The show's going to get way raunchier, though.
I know. I'm so vanilla. Jamie, you're really the right choice.
I mean,
So Michael,
yeah.
you've been helping us out during this podcast making progress.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. I wouldn't have content to distribute if it weren't for people like yourself that had an idea and the will to create it.
Well,
Before we jump into that, is there anything that you would like to say or that we could possibly discuss about any of the other podcasts across We Own This Town?
Wow, that's a big question.
Because there's a lot at this point.
Yeah, there's several.
Frantically
I'm
Googling,
pulling
we
up-
own this town.
Yeah,
Its
what
own
is this?
website.
Yeah, well, I just, I have a horrible memory.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Hot Minute is a romp. It's
Yeah,
great.
it's a flagship.
A lot of the other podcasts are more Nashville-centric, which is great, but may not have as wide of an appeal. Like we have a bar and restaurant podcast that if you live in San Diego, probably not going to want to know what the latest cool
Sure.
restaurant in town is.
But if you're going to visit Nashville soon, you should definitely pour through all 20 hours of that podcast
Yeah,
before
for sure.
you come.
Yeah, we have a bunch. I mean, the latest one is a show called Bandsplainer, in which Olivia Ladd, the host, kind of just picks a cult band and examines their entire history. So, like, she goes through Devo, she goes through Squeeze, she goes through Black Flag, and most recent was Squeeze. And it's pretty fascinating talk, especially for bands that like didn't ever really. They would have like a one hit, but they actually had 25 albums.
Right.
So you get to like investigate that. And then the other one that's maybe the biggest crossover with this particular podcast audience, maybe that's pigeonholing, is a show called San Dimas Today. That's like a deep dive into all things Bill and Ted. So
I definitely want to get them on the
man.
show.
they have many thoughts they would love to be on.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
feels like people that might be lifelong friends right there. That's cool.
So I mean, it's we don't even know how many episodes they're going to make. Probably between 12 and 20 that are just all about
1,000.
Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. They've already interviewed one of the screenwriters, Chris Matheson,
Sweet.
and like talked to one of the creators about the whole process of making Bill and Ted. They talked to, in future episodes, they talked to Napoleon from Excellent Adventure, and then the guy who did all the music as well. So
That is so awesome.
turns out if you just blindly send emails and say, I have a podcast, I'm interested in this thing you did, do you want to talk? People write back and say, yeah, okay.
Well,
Because talking is like nothing.
I mean, there's been a third Bill and Ted's movie like orbiting Hollywood for a while now. I'm sure that like all of those other people that were involved with the other two definitely need work right now and definitely are probably trying to get back on the radar somehow.
I disagree.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, like Alex Winter, who's not Keanu Reeves, he's like a really good documentary director now. Like,
Is he?
I don't know that he needs. Like, he did a
Did
movie.
Did he do their podcast?
Did he? Not yet, but
He should.
I think he will.
I'm saying all
Alex,
the other
he
dudes that
should.
did their podcasts need work.
Yeah, maybe.
How's Napoleon doing?
I did
I
not
think
really.
Napoleon's doing good.
Great.
Listen to the episode when it comes out. He lives in Australia now.
Sure.
He's getting a ton of work.
All right.
You should check out Alex Winter's documentaries, though, like Napster, one about cryptocurrency, one about, like, I don't know. There's a bunch of really interesting topics that you would think the guy from Bill and Ted would not make, but he
Hey.
did.
All right, so you guys brought fanfic.
True.
You want me to start then?
I think so, yeah.
Sure. All right. So,
Because this pertains to some of the stuff we talked about last time, right?
well, yeah. I mean, I tried to pull from as many sources that we've talked about as possible, like taking everything that I've learned up till this point to try to find exactly the one specific fan fiction that would, that would answer the question of why that we've been asking this whole time. And I was unsuccessful. But let me tell you about the
No
journey.
answer to that.
So I went on Archive of Our Own, which was a
303.
suggestion by my sister Sarah Beth. Hi, Sarah Beth. And you can use the different tags to figure out exactly what it is that you want to find. And that's what she had recommended, and that's not something I had done before specifically, as specifically as I went into this time. So I started, because that was her recommendation, I started with the big tag fluff. And there was hundreds of thousands in the fluff category.
I need specificity there. So what is that?
What's
So
fluff?
Oh yeah. So this is.
I know what the word means in terms of like
Yes,
literature.
we asked
Sure.
the same to my sister. So fluff is a piece that is, the intent is for you to feel good at the end.
Okay.
So if
It
it's
is, yeah, I mean, it
if
is
it's
what it
not
sounds like.
fluff, then you're not supposed. Then there might be another motivation. You don't just feel happy and warm at the end of it.
All of that Harry Potter erotica is, I would say, categorically not fluff. Well,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's fluff, like, depending on what your definition of feeling good is.
Fluff feels subjective.
Yeah, it is
Sure.
subjective, but, like, yes, but the good feelings are the thing. Like, so something that's really dark and painful and dramatic would not be fluff.
I would say that it all, because it's kind of the hurt comfort thing too. It always seems to have a easy icing on top ending. Like everybody comes out ahead.
Yeah.
Ending.
Everybody kind of gets what they want.
Like a freeze frame. Like everyone jumps up at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it was the greatest summer ever. So then I was like, okay, I've got hundreds of thousands of stories in the fluff category. I need to narrow this down. And the most recent one that we had talked about was Sherlock Holmes fan fiction from the pre-internet era. Like Mark Twain and J.M. Barrie wrote Sherlock Holmes fanfic.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, well, let's add that into it. Now I dropped down to like 10,000, and I thought that was cool. And then for Zach, I clicked only crossover fanfic.
Sure.
Because Zach likes
That's my jam.
Sure.
crossover fanfic. Then I was just trying to whittle it down even further, so I picked only stories involving Jim Moriarty, because he's my favorite character from Sherlock. I mean, he's probably everybody's favorite character from Sherlock.
Sure.
And so then I'm getting down smaller, and I'm into the thousands
Do
now.
people call him Jim?
I didn't realize his first name was Jim.
I thought it was just Moriarty, but that was the one that came up under like
Is
the
that
characters.
fanfic? Like, oh, it's Jim Moriarty.
Most people call him Slim Jim.
He goes by James to his family, but he's Jim to me. He's my buddy. But then I clicked on the explicit filter, so they had to be explicit stories, just for fun.
Yeah.
And then finally, I was looking through, and I was down into like the 10s and 20s, and I clicked on the one other filter that it got it down to one that I could find, and that was Doctor Who. So it had to be crossover. Doctor Who.
Who?
Oh, this guy.
What's the stream of tags now that you have at this point?
Okay, so I have Fluff, Sherlock Holmes, only crossover, including Jim Moriarty, Doctor Who, and in the explicit category. And I've gotten from all of fanfic down to one fanfic at this point, and I was like, I've done it.
Yeah.
I've gotten to the root of the issue. And the name of the fanfic that I found was Practicing My Porn. And it is just that. It's somebody who wanted to get better at writing pornographic scenes, and it included all those characters. But, spoiler, it includes none of those characters.
What?
He just tagged all of that in there. And it was just, I got clickbaited into it. And I almost started from scratch to do it all over again to get to a better conclusion. But I was so frustrated by that conclusion that it was like, it was just a scene of someone getting a blowjob, but totally unspecific about who.
Jim Moriarty.
I hope so.
Yeah.
From, what's the Doctor Who? Yeah, that was the other one. So
an unspecific person
just
got a blowjob
getting a blowjob, kind of,
from
and
another person.
and that was it. And
Well,
then
it
there
sounds
was
like a mystery's afoot.
yeah.
I can't figure out.
So maybe
Is that a foot?
So do you think the filters are ineffective, or do you think they're just being exploited?
My guess is that if I was trying to do it in a more sincere, like finding an actual fanfic community, it would have been much more successful and helpful. But I wanted to narrow it as much as possible. And I imagine when you start getting into those like hyper specific categories, then you're probably most susceptible to, finding a
Gaming
Well, it
system.
seems like you
Yeah.
were looking for that in the same way. Like, have you ever tried to write a text just on autocorrects? You just pick the same word.
only
and
the
then you
middle, just all middle.
Yeah. And it just comes out like gobbledygook. It seems like you're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, I was just trying to follow my spirit to the perfect fanfic, but I was unsuccessful. But that was mine this week.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but because you couldn't find what
this
you
is
wanted.
the place for it.
Oh, yeah, I do want to put you on the spot.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to put you on the spot for a second. Of those 6 filters, what were your hopes and dreams to find?
Well, what I was hoping to find was
More than a blowjob?
more than a blowjob, like a real connection. What I was hoping to find was like just the person who had written exactly the thing, like you put the most crazy specificity into your filters, and somebody had written this thing from just a place of like, they had a super, super specific, like that idea that all things that you can imagine do exist somewhere already.
What is that, Rule 43?
Yeah, it's like that your brain,
if you can think of it,
like if
porn
you can
exists in
think,
it.
if you can think of it, like somebody else has thought of it and made it at this point. And I just wanted it to be like a loving tribute to Doctor Who and Jim Moriarty, and that there was some amount of erotic content in it as well.
It was explicit.
So I haven't watched...
And it was still fluff at the end of all that.
Yeah, and that everyone is happy. Everybody gets what they want at the end.
Well,
I haven't really watched much Doctor Who. Isn't there an episode where Doctor Who meets Moriarty? It's been on for 40 years.
So. Yeah,
there must be.
Sherlock.
I mean, they're both,
Absolutely.
they're both British properties. So, yeah, I would think so. So maybe I was unsuccessful because what I was asking for in the fanfic world already existed in
They were like, that's old hat, man.
But then is that not fanfic of Sherlock Holmes from within the Doctor Who universe? I mean, you're borrowing from pre-existing characters. And the great cycle continues.
If there's a Doctor Who episode where he goes and meets Moriarty, would there also be a porn parody of that could meet your specificity for explicit?
Yeah.
Like an Edward Penis Hands kind of scenario.
Yeah.
Are there porn parodies of specific Doctor Who episodes? That feels maybe a little too granular. But
Yeah.
not a world I've ever investigated.
I mean, maybe. I'm sure that there is at least a porn parody of each one of those individually. I'm sure there's like Sherlock
There's a
Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes porn?
I'm sure. And I'm
Yeah,
sure
but
there's a Doctor Who porn.
what's it-
But is there a
Hang
crossover
on.
between the two?
Sherlock Holmes, The Pound of Baskerville.
Nice. That's very good. That's very good.
It's pretty good.
I don't know enough of the other stories.
That's literally the only one.
I have
know.
no puns to bring to the table here.
Jeez.
I can tell you about what I was going to bring to the table
Please.
this week. So I really wanted to come in with something heady and like highly intellectual.
Great.
Sure.
And like really set the bar for this episode.
I feel like we kind of do too much of that on this show.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a podcast about ostensibly we're saying why do people write these things?
Yes.
And I thought like the episode kind of investigating like, for lack of a better word, vintage fan fiction, like going back and looking at older examples that weren't internet based is really fascinating. So as luck would have it, a friend sent me an article about this thing called The Library of Babel. It's like a short story that's about these hexagon rooms that go infinitely. They're filled with books on every shelf, and it's so infinite that it's every word and letter combination possible, and you can just roam these things.
That's cool.
But it's not fanfic. It's just a short story.
Yeah.
It's like a cool, heady short story, but it's not like, and Scooby-Doo was there.
Right.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds like...
Sorry, no, I should have said The Mound of Baskerville.
Yeah, you should have. That's shame on you. Shame on you.
So, yeah, no intellectual things coming to the table here. I'm not bringing anything worth discussion from that regard.
Gotcha. But that does sound very similar to the book House of Sand. Have you read that?
I'm not familiar with that.
Or the Book of Sand? Whatever it is, it's like there's this house that like rooms open up into it and they just go forever.
House of Leaves?
House of Leaves. Thank you.
Daniel Lusky book?
Yeah.
I think is his name.
Yeah.
I've never read it. I don't know anything about it. I've never read it. I just know his name.
I did
because
read it, and it's
every
a very
girl I've ever dated loves that book.
Well, yeah, then you're with the weird ones because that is a strange book.
Tell me more.
So it's a book where there's this house and you go down into like the basement and it's just infinite. It's like there's an infinite interconnected series of tunnels and rooms and menace and geometric.
And Menace?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like
It's like a quintessential postmodernist novel, I think. In that, like,
I've heard of
you'll
it.
flip on it, you'll come to a page and there's like 3 words, like kind of E.E. Cummings style, like 3 words sort of dotted throughout the page. That's just like that's that information for that thing, and so it's all over the place. His other book, I forget the name. He had another book. I can't remember the name of it.
House of Steves.
It was House of Steves.
And it's like you go into the basement and it's just infinite Steves. Steve Jobs is there. Steve Harvey is there.
Oh, Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
Steve Byrne.
Yeah. And it's just, you have to go through all of them and it's filled with menace.
Pick your Steve.
Yeah.
Filled with menace. Love this phrase.
Yeah. That's
so many good episode titles just being bandied about.
Menace.
Yeah.
Filled with Menace, House of Steves.
24 Karat Goldblum. Breath.
Yeah. Oh my
Breath.
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so no huge intellectual.
Yeah, I read this short story and I was like, "This is gonna be great! I can't wait to share it with them." And I was like, "Oh, this has no relevancy whatsoever."
Just a cool story. Got it.
I'm gonna go with my gut instinct, and I'm gonna go on fanfiction.net and AO3, and I'm gonna find something to do with Samus Aran from the Metroid series.
Excellent,
great choice.
Because there's gotta be stuff about that. And
classic.
So here's what I learned.
Yeah.
I went in with the expectation that there's only like 5 Metroid games or something. I'm sure if anyone hears this and gets upset, let's say less than 20. I don't know the specificity, but there's a whole very rich world there to build off of that has not been fully tapped yet. There's no movie about Metroid. There's, only a handful of games. So I felt like someone would just write a story that's like, one of the games. Like, here's Samus going to this planet, finding a Metroid, of course, and a space pirate, and doing her thing. What I've learned is they all go blue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Man, if it's a female character,
Yeah.
if it's just a cool character, everybody just wants to see them have sex.
A piece of that.
I mean, granted, I only skim the surface. There's a lot.
Yeah.
But
what we're discovering is that that's really all you can ever do.
yeah. Well, I wanted to ask, because this is really my first foray into investigating these things, how long do you sit or do you invest in reading one of these before you're like, there's 10 more pages, I gotta stop?
Never as much time as I would like to. Like, we've never done a show where I was like, man, I wish I just had, where I wasn't like, I needed 2 more hours. Like, I needed to explore this further, and I did not get
But
to.
you'll read an individual story. Will you abandon halfway through, or will you always finish it just to know?
No.
Well, I have abandoned 9/10 of all things that I've started. Like, I will start into it, and basically what I'm looking for when I'm reading through is I'm just looking for something that grabs my attention or is showing me something new that is at least interesting to engage with.
Right.
And just like with looking blindly at anything, most of the things you're just going to pick up blindly are not going to be that interesting to you.
That's true.
So I abandon almost all things that I pick up. The ones that I stick with are the ones that either I think are funny or the ones that I have some sort of a genuine interest in that part of the subculture and I want to learn something new about it. So that's my experience.
I would say that I abandoned them even more quickly than that.
Really?
Yeah, I usually go for quantity over quality to see like just how much Samus Aran stuff I can get into, or until I've got a rough idea of like what this person was doing with this and what this person was doing with this, until I feel that I can extract some nonsense out of it to talk about.
Right. Well, I thought Samus and Metroid would be a good topic for the show because I played Metroid, the original, on the Nintendo, and it was like a shocker at the end.
Yeah.
You beat Mother Brain, and then, whoa, this is a girl.
You were a woman the whole time,
Which is
Michael.
kind of revelatory for like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm very old. I'm 39 years old. So when Metroid came out, I'm like, I'm not going back and playing this on an emulator. I had the Nintendo, was playing it first time through. And there's a cheat code, which I still remember, where she can play in a bikini, which seems very exploitative.
Yeah, that really goes counter to the whole spirit of Metroid, where it's like, see, this superhero has been a woman the whole time, and you were just as cool, but also she has boobs, so you probably want to see them, you weirdo.
And it's also 8-bit, so I don't know. Really know.
Those boobs were 9-bit.
It's true. So I thought it would be a good place. I knew that whatever I found would go blue, but I thought it would be maybe a healthy mix. It's probably more blue than not.
I'm surprised by that because the Metroid universe does seem to be in that perfect Venn diagram of like there are less than 20 games. It is interesting. There's plenty of planets that are a part of the lore, but like. And there's plenty of backstory, especially when you get into the GameCube ones. Right. There's plenty of backstory and history, but none of it's like there's not a lot of developed like explicit canon. So that seems like the exact type of thing that people would just sprawl out with.
Yeah.
And like really develop that universe more.
Well, can I tell you the title of the first one that I found and read through?
Yes, please.
It's called Metroid: Smut.
Yeah. Well, at least they're forthcoming.
Yeah, I mean, I knew right off the bat I have to read this.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
I know where it's going to go. Pretty good, I guess.
Pretty good.
I guess. I mean, it did not have anything that I was looking for in terms of like, what I was looking for as an original story. But this is, I guess, what you call a one-off because there's only one chapter. One shot by Insomniac by choice. Found it on Archive of Our Own, and it's basically about Samus. I don't know if you know the lore of Samus, but she is. There's a race of aliens called the Chozo that kind of train her, or they're her mentors. They're like these bird-like creatures where whenever you get a power-up in the game, there's a Chozo statue kind of holding it for you. So
sweet.
That's part of the lore. So this is her like training and meditating with the Chozo. Turns out they don't like clothes. They
interesting.
Don't approve.
Which is weird
because they're bird people. They wear their feathers.
Robotic bird people.
Yeah.
They got a rule. No clothes.
Yes, Samus.
No clothes.
No clothes. We got to wear your robo feathers.
Yeah. And then there's only one time that Samus can be by herself and relax, and that's when she bathes.
Interesting.
So we get into bath time pretty quickly. Some explicit descriptions of pleasuring yourself in the bathtub while you're in the Chozo temple.
Because she was an orphan. They raised her. Right. She was like blasted out in the space and they found her and raised her.
So if you're raised as an orphan by robot bird aliens, like you need to blow off steam and you do so in the bath because that's the only time
you're alone.
Clawfoot porcelain bathtub.
Yeah. I don't know if this was meant as a humorous thing or
I
not.
think it was a deep metaphor.
Yeah.
No. What I'm saying is, she has an orgasm in the tub and yells out in ecstasy. And then the Chozo are like, what's wrong? Are you okay? We're going to monitor you now. And the story ends with, what does it say here? Oh, man, you're going to have to cut this pause out. Basically there's a camera watching her at the end. It's like she goes back to the tub. She's like, finally I'm alone again. I got through this thing where they were worried that I was hurt and I'm gonna masturbate again. Nope, camera on you. And that's like the story.
That is
seriously Chozo, you pervy little Chozos.
So that's like
they're worried about her.
Yeah,
that's like a weird wish fulfillment, like that thing we read with My Immortal, which was like, I'm giving my character this name, but I'm explicitly saying that I'm not related to the guy from My Chemical Romance.
Right.
And it's like, no, just go all the way. Like, just, you can be, it's your fantasy, just be related to him. That's a weird thing, too, of like, you're writing this story about her masturbating. You're already in control of everything here. The final touch is that you're now putting a camera in at the end of it so that you can really watch her masturbate.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, let me tell you about the next one I read.
Great, sure. This will probably illuminate it.
So if you didn't like that one,
no, I loved it.
Yeah, we got one called Metroid: Other M.
Okay.
Wait. What's the other M?
So Other M is a Metroid game.
That's it. Yes. Yeah.
That's the title of one of the Metroid games.
That was like a Game Boy Plus one, I think.
Sure.
Anyways.
Clearly, I don't know.
Sorry, I have two questions before that. So they're both Metroid : same author on both of these?
This is by Sierra Lee, different author.
Okay. Follow-up question. do you have the tags on that first episode, our first story?
Oh, sure. I think. Like, how did I find it, or what is it? What is it tagged?
Yeah. What are all the tags associated?
All
with
right.
it?
So Metroid : smut.
Yeah.
Is tagged smut. Sexual content, POV second person, POV third person limited, POV female character, POV original character, LGBTQ themes.
Really?
That's questionable.
BDSM. I glossed over some of the details.
Sure.
There's another chozo that they kind of insinuate that she could have a thing with.
I see.
So, sexual inexperience, masturbation, mutual masturbation, and torture.
Torture?
I
Is that what
mean,
the
she
camera
can't be
is?
alone. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
torture.
Yeah, that's sort of psychological torture.
Okay, please.
So those
continue.
are
Other M. Okay.
other M, which,
other M, which is great.
doesn't seem to have any additional tags. So here's what's weird about this one. The concept is insane. Here's the summary. Hungry for cash, Nintendo gives the next Metroid game to a hentai developer. How will Samus react? Not mildly. So right out of the gate, this is not written as an original story within the Samus universe. This is a game.
Yeah.
But Samus is a real person that goes into her own game.
Yeah.
Wow,
as
I
if
like that.
game characters were just actors and actresses who
Right.
Sort of like in the Wreck-It Ralph universe, where they're all, when they're not playing a game, they're all just hanging out together.
Sure.
Right.
And she's now being forced into a hentai version.
That
of
Wreck-It
her
Ralph
game.
hentai was
Yeah, really
in poor
upsetting.
taste, I would say.
You really should not include the bubble bobble dinosaurs in that. Like, that's just too much.
I disagree. So yeah, it kind of starts off where she's at the Nintendo office. She's talking to Nintendo execs saying like, oh, really? It's going to be a hentai thing? This is absurd. And they're like, well, you know, they make mention of Metroid Volleyball, which I think is an actual game.
It's a game, I believe, yeah.
She's like, they're saying, oh, Metroid Volleyball was such a bust. We got to do this better game. So we're giving it to these hentai developers. She begrudgingly accepts and goes into the game. And it like right off, it's like she notices how much more jiggly her breasts are. It's like, okay, of course. That's
Sure.
how it goes.
We got to change the game physics if you're in a hentai game. Which, those of you at home who don't know what hentai is, it's a form of Japanese cartoon pornography involving tentacles.
I think that it's hilarious that you think that anybody listening to this podcast doesn't know what hentai is.
I don't know. Maybe Kyle is, just starting out in the world. Needs to see the dark corners of the internet still.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really watched much hentai myself. I'm familiar with it conceptually.
The concept, yeah.
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 So
It's not that interesting.
To you, don't kink shame.
So based on this setup, she goes into her new Metroid game and immediately meets a King Metroid, which is a giant-sized Metroid with an enormous cock, like a enormous cock.
Got it.
So it's just like a membranous
Yeah,
orb with little pincers on the bottom and one
huge
massive cock.
Yes,
Got it.
and it
That out of the first game.
yeah. So there's a one. I can't even like read some of these aloud because I feel embarrassed to read them.
Sure.
But basically, she has sex with the King Metroid.
Yeah.
Because you got to do the boss battle.
Also, an interesting thing about that is that Andrew will literally read anything that I tell him to.
Yeah, that's true. I'm very, like, I'm just here for the experiment. Like, let's get into it.
Yeah. So I won't do that.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy that someone would write these words.
Yeah.
Here's just maybe this one will be okay.
Just like a mild touch.
Yeah.
The cock, she couldn't keep it in her mind as a neutral mating organ, finally slapped against her stomach. Samus involuntarily released a sound that was half gasp, half moan. It felt so heavy, so hard, so powerful. She knew she wasn't going to stay sane. At least she would submit to a creature at the pinnacle of evolution and genetic engineering, not some random man who got lucky.
I mean, she's got high standards.
I mean, I get it.
I mean, she wants a being that's at the pinnacle of evolution and genetic engineering, not some random Randall. You know what I'm saying?
Not a Randall. But it's also interesting that they incorporate that's what the Metroids do. They suck up your essence and they take over your brain. Like they make you brain dead and they can control you. And I'm just saying within canon.
I mean, that could be a sexual metaphor, I guess. But, Well,
I don't know if it's a sexual metaphor or not, but if you're going to have sex with a Metroid, I imagine the psychic assault would also be a part of it.
Sex droid.
Yeah, so mostly this thing just has a lot of sex with her.
Sure.
She's wearing her Zero suit, and it penetrates that.
Oh, my goodness.
Eventually.
I thought it was bulletproof.
Eventually.
Got it.
Not at first. And the oddest part, that's odd. That's very odd. But the oddest part is she's having sex with this thing, and it definitely is saying that she's kind of into it. Yeah. Like, the insinuation is not like I'm being raped by a creature.
Yeah.
It's kind of like better. That's better, right?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that the author would write it that way. But maybe I'm being judgmental.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she wakes up after being taken by this King Metroid, and almost immediately doesn't know how much time has passed, doesn't know where she is, and lays an egg.
She lays an egg?
She lays an egg because she has been impregnated
She's
by the
half
King
Chozo the whole time. We didn't even know, though.
So she was raised by Chozo. She has Metroid DNA in her. That's part of the lore of the whole series. So now this King Metroid's had sex with her, so she's able to have a Metroid herself, I guess.
A hybrid or just a straight up Metroid?
It's just a straight up Metroid. And it's very long. I had a hard time getting through all this because there's lots more King Metroid cock. I did skip a lot of this. There's some. Soon the King Metroid's cock popped out of her cleavage. Her suit was still mostly intact, wrapping her breast tightly around its shaft. Even her large breasts couldn't cover its entire cock, leaving the head pushing against her. This is like
really vivid.
So it's like
going
vivid,
hardcore. But it goes 3 months later after these double rapes, and basically she's just like, I'm a Metroid mom, like total acceptance. There's no like taking the essence of Samus that's like a bounty hunter, warrior, and destroying all these things.
See, that's the thing that I find frustrating. Like, from me, if I was looking for some smut, I would still want the character to have the essence of who they are as a character as well.
What's the point if it's not?
If it's not really that character. It's
that character is like born and bred specifically to annihilate the Metroid, which, if she was pregnant with one, would make for some interesting conflict that you could write into that. There is something there that could have been very interesting. Not all the King Metroid cock stuff, but the other stuff.
There's a short film that someone made of Metroid that like looks phenomenal.
I've seen it. It's cool.
They did an amazing job. But if you read the YouTube comments, it's all like, why does Samus look scared constantly? Why does Samus like her personality in this short film is completely wrong because she's a badass. And that's, I think, probably a common complaint with the way she's being depicted in a lot of this stuff is that like she is a female, but that's kind of the end of the story. She's a total badass. Like she wouldn't put up with anything.
Yeah. Half Chozo.
So that those two were kind of the smut one, not so disturbing. This other M did not feel great at the end of this.
When I was reading through all the Harry Potter erotica, there were definitely some times where I really was reevaluating my choices. So I appreciate you being willing to go all the way in and like read through it to try to distill it into something we could discuss, because it can be kind of tough. You're reading through and it just, this is too much.
Yeah.
This is too much.
Well, I think the good stuff, like the actually good stuff, is kind of dense and really hard to cover in 45 minutes. So we tend to steer away from that, which is unfortunate.
So real quick, the last one that I read, I know we've gone long.
That's all right.
But I wanted to clean my palate after that, and I really wanted a crossover.
Love it.
So went on fan fiction, got out of AO3 because I was like, what I found here was not what I was looking for. So I went back to fanfiction.net and found a story that was Link from Legend of Zelda crossed over with stories of Samus. 2 chapters, 1,500 words.
Great.
Nice and quick. And the first chapter, pretty innocent, kind of into it. They again aren't in the real world; they're in a Nintendo world where they're both like battlers in Smash Brothers and kind of have a camaraderie from being in that. And then there's one paragraph where they're like sitting on a couch together playing Super Nintendo, and their hands brush against one another.
That's so cute.
It's really cute.
Yeah.
And then chapter 2, they're getting married.
That's so nice. Link and Samus, I wonder if she would lay a little like a Link egg.
That seems like that's so a little Link egg.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she lays eggs.
That's so similar to the Padme Anakin thing.
That's what I was
just
thinking
two
too,
characters hanging out doing a thing that is like a meta activity.
Right.
Like them just playing Super Nintendo in their apartment is weird. Like I don't know.
So, I mean, I guess this gave me what I wanted. It was, you got Link, you got Samus, Luigi pops up.
Yeah.
Best man?
No, he interrupts their hand touching and tells them
Luigi.
that
Third wheel.
Captain Falcon and Sonic are going to have a race. Come see it.
That's actually pretty cool.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think any of these were like super poorly written. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of prose that could be, nitpicked and whatever. But just as like someone reading a original short story, I kind of felt like I got the point. I wasn't, I got to commend them on that for everybody.
Sure.
Despite the content, at least there were coherent ideas being put forth.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that what we're discovering more as we read more things is that it is as mixed bag as just everybody in the world is writing at the level of their ability. But regardless of your level of ability, there is some draw that makes you want to write with these established characters that you already like. Even famous authors historically would write with other characters that just because they like them, and like there's something in us.
Yeah, I mean, your sister made the point about like you don't have to do all the world building work,
Right.
Like Samus has a world,
Right.
Like I can dive right in and make something up.
Which is why it's so weird when people pick characters and write them and completely neglect that world.
Yes.
And just don't ignore the rules of.
Yeah,
what
but
that
do you think
world
that's
is.
just writer inexperience rather than like?
Yeah, probably.
I would think so, yeah.
Or
like
you're just
practicing
like
my porn.
so ready to get down like to that King Metroid cock. Like you're blindsided.
Yeah.
Or you got blinders on.
Ugh.
Trying to get to that.
Yeah, because it can be
Metroid
used
cock.
very effectively. I think about like the will crumble, like, oh geez.
We must unite within our walls
Yes.
or we will crumble.
Like we must unite within her walls or will crumble from within, where you have all of that previously established world building, and that adds a lot to the emotional content because you know those relationships and they go deeper from there, as opposed to completely glossing over that and was like, why didn't you just make these original characters?
Because no one would read it.
Right, I guess, yeah, I guess so.
Great, I think we covered it.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just more, there's just more time off of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say in the end, I really enjoyed reading the stories, even when they were very disturbing. I
Yeah.
like that someone put that effort in, and I can absolutely see that being a legitimate full-time pastime.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what I'm bored. What do I want to read? Like all of it's a rich, deep well to
Yeah.
pull from.
We've never set out to do one of these shows where I was looking up content and no more than 20 minutes into it was like, wow, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like that's something that I truly was not expecting to find, even though I'm now intentionally looking for the weirdest shit I can find. I was truly surprised by that and delighted.
Yeah, I mean, I think my perception of this going in was like very amateur, very much just straight into the pornographic realm.
Yeah.
And some of it, I guess, is that, but it deserves more credit than that. Than I think the outside
I
world
agree.
generally gives it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's because all of us, it's easy to find those, and they're very eye catching because it's so extreme a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But but there is like really rich, great stuff and whole communities that develop around that as well. So it's like, yeah, it is a fascinating world, man.
That's why we're here.
That's why we can never leave because there's an endless well. Oh man.
It's true. Let's do a 3-hour long episode.
Yeah,
Great.
let's do it.
Wow.
Let's cut it.
We're already 1 hour in.
Great.
Jesus.
Sorry, Zach.
We haven't even talked about anything yet.
Yeah.
This is all embedded in the Goldfinger conversation that we need to bookend.
Yeah. So gold fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gold
24
fingers.
karat gold fingers. Nailed it.
Okay. Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night. Why did they make an Eon Flux movie but not a Metroid movie? Just
feel like they
Nintendo
should
just wouldn't
still.
let go of the rights?
Maybe.
I well, obviously wondered about that quite a lot myself because, I mean, Eon Flux, that is, I feel like, even, especially for when it came out, was like a deep cut still.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I still don't know the original source material for that.
Really?
I did see the movie, but I
Well, I've only is the original source material the MTV cartoon, or does it go to a comic book before that?
As far as I know, and I'm a big fan of that show, like as far as I know, it started with Liquid Television, and they had the Eon Flux shorts, which were a cartoon, and then a few years after that, Eon Flux was its own 20-minute long show where there was all of the shorts basically had no dialogue. And they were just these crazy things where Eon Flux died at the end of every one of them. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
And then even the show is still some of the most like groundbreaking, weirdest conceptual, best animation. Because all the styles that like Egon Schiele, like elongated people, like the style is incredible. It's still one of the best animated series of all time. But I felt that it was, I guess, being in the heyday of MTV, like original content, it probably was very popular.
Right.
But
Yeah.
10
Totally.
years after that, when they made the Eon Flux movie, I was like, I don't know who this is for.
I mean, it was for us.
It's for us.
yeah.
I don't know. I know who this is for. I wish it didn't suck.
Yeah. Do you remember the Mario Brothers cartoon with had like the live action Mario host
At the beginning
at
of
the
it?
beginning, and he would
Oh.
I get that
very
confused
weird.
with there was another show on the same channel, I believe, at the same time that had the Power Glove was a character in it.
Yeah.
Or no, the controller of the Power Glove was a character in it.
Well, and it had Link, and it had
Link in it.
Mega Man, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And Princess Zelda, and it was just like a kid who had the blaster.
Right, but does that count as fanfic?
I don't even know. Until you said that, I thought that was a fever dream that I had.
No, full series.
Wow.
So weird.
What was the name of that show? It's like, but it's like no one's gonna look at that show and be like, "Oh yeah, that's canonical,"
Yeah.
regardless of who owns it.
It's a
Captain N, the Game Master. Does that sound correct? American Canadian animated television series that aired on TV from 89 to 91. NBC.
NBC, definitely.
Yeah, this is it.
Captain N. I thought it had a totally different name.
for Nintendo, I assume. Is that what the Captain's N name
for
stand
sure,
for?
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.